Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Emma and I really love classic sci-fi and literary fiction, so if you like any of those genres, then you are in the right place. In today's video, I have a little bit of a book haul for you guys of some books that I've accumulated over the past couple of months. If you saw my first video on this channel, you may be wondering, Emma, if you're moving in a few months and trying to work down all of the books on your physical TBR, then why are you buying new books? And the answer to that is partially because I have received so many as like gifts and stuff that is specifically for buying books, like gift cards and that kind of thing. The other reason is that these are books that I feel like I could genuinely read in the next couple of months, or are books that I definitely want to have in my collection. As I've said before a couple of times, I am definitely a mood reader, so for me it's really important when there's something that I know that I want to read, or a genre of book that I have been enjoying lately. It's kind of important to me that I have that, or have that available, that I just keep reading and don't get into a slump. Obviously buying books all the time to like fill that kind of mood need is not ideal, and so I definitely have enough books to kind of mood read off of, but these are ones that I have been thinking about or have wanted for at least a little while, so I feel a little bit better about getting these because I definitely feel like they're books that I could read before moving overseas, or like I said, just something that I definitely know I will want to read at some point and have in my collection even if I don't actually get to it before I move. But honestly, I'm hoping to get to most of these before I move. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the haul. The first book that I picked up a couple of weeks ago on a date night with my husband is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This book follows Daphne and Miles, who end up being roommates when Daphne's engagement falls apart because her ex-fiance realizes that he's in love with his childhood best friend. It says on the back that this couple is definitely opposites attract. Daphne seems to be very reserved and keep to herself, where it says that Miles is the opposite of that, so I'm assuming that he is very outgoing and is definitely going to push Daphne's boundaries in a lot of ways. I have been wanting to read Emily Henry books since the fall when I found adult romance for the first time with The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I know that Emily Henry is another really popular adult romance author, and I have never read any of hers before, but I know that the couples tend to be very popular, and so I wanted to give this book a try to see if I like her writing style and to see if I like the tropes that are in her writing. I think that this would definitely be a fun book to read over the summer. For me, I feel like I associate romance with the spring and summer, even though it can really happen at any time of year. But yeah, that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. The next book that I picked up is one that I have also been wanting for a really long time, and it is The Running Man by Stephen King. The plot of this book seems very action-packed. It is about a man named Ben Richards who is very desperate because his daughter is sick and needs urgent medical attention. In order to try and get the money for the medical attention, he volunteers to participate in a game where all he has to do is survive for a whole month, and if he does, he will win $1 billion. But there are obviously a lot of people competing, I think, and different challenges that he will have to face in order to survive and try and cure his daughter. I want to read this book because the plot sounded really interesting to me, but also because I have really been enjoying books that have movie adaptations recently, such as Project Hail Mary and Wuthering Heights. It's just been really interesting to see what the differences are between the books and the movies and that kind of thing. And also, I have never read a fiction book by Stephen King before. I have read his book on writing, which is about his writing process and also kind of a memoir in a way, and I really enjoyed that, but I've actually never read any of his fiction, and I kind of thought it's really time that I do that. So I thought that The Running Man would be a good one to start with for me because I'm generally not a person that enjoys horror, and the only other book of his that I am really interested in right now is 11/22/63, but that book is just so long, so I thought that this would be a good kind of start because it is a little bit shorter. It's in a genre that I think will be really interesting for me, so I'm very excited to give this one a try. And again, I feel like I could definitely read this in the next couple of months. It would be a fun summer read because it should be very fast moving since the plot seems so intense. And that is The Running Man by Stephen King. The next book that I have is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is the first book in the Red Rising series. This book follows a main character named Darrow whose wife has been taken and people have been enslaved by his enemies. And it says on the back of the book that he has to possibly become one of his enemies in order to survive what is happening. I don't really know what kind of description to give it beyond that. I don't really know what the exact politics are or what the dynamic is, like what it means by his enemies or any of that sort of thing. But this is a series I was interested in because I've heard it described as like a space Hunger Games kind of series, and I think that'll be really interesting to read. I really enjoy sci-fi, and I also enjoy the Hunger Games series. I have not read those books yet. They're actually on my physical TBR to read before I move overseas, and those are also books that I plan to read this summer. But I think that because I like the story of those so much, I will hopefully like the story of this as well. And I was definitely kind of bitten again by the sci-fi bug when I read Project Hail Mary in anticipation of the movie coming out. So I'm very excited to read this one and see what I think think of it. My husband has actually already read this book. We picked it up on the way to a vacation that we took a couple weeks ago, and he said that he liked it. He said he would definitely continue the series. He said that it definitely was a much simpler story than a lot of the stuff that he really likes to read. He likes a lot of more high fantasy, and he also likes a little bit of magic and that kind of thing, and so I think this is definitely very much sci-fi heavy, but he did like it and recommended it, so I am excited to give this one a try. The next book that I have, I am very excited about because it is right up my alley. It is a literary fiction book called The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This book is actually told through letters, and it follows a main character named Sybil Van Antwerp who has lived a very full life, but it seems like there is still a process of forgiveness that she definitely needs to work through though, and that kind of story will be told through her letters as they progress. I picked this one up because I really enjoyed reading Theo of Golden back in March, and I think that this will be a pretty similar story since they're about characters that are similar in age and seem to be similar in terms of their wisdom and approach to the world. I obviously am not sure yet because I haven't read this one, but Theo approached the world from like a place of forgiveness and a place of want to make things better and to serve people well, and so I think that is something that definitely will come up in this book as well. I've also heard that the writing and wisdom in this book is very beautiful, and so I'm excited to see how that all unfolds as Sybil writes her letters and moves through her life in that kind of story. So that is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. The next two books that I have I'm very excited about because I did not even know that this collection existed. I actually found out about them because I walked into a bookstore on a trip a couple of weeks ago and found a whole collection of these Penguin Archive books. The first one that I picked up was Christina Rossetti's To Read and to Dream. Christina Rossetti was one of the pre-Raphaelite authors. I don't know that she was directly part of the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, but she was definitely around that group of people because her brother Dante Gabriel Rossetti is definitely a very renowned pre-Raphaelite brother. Christina Rossetti did a lot of work with groups that are very near and dear to my heart in Victorian times, and so I'm definitely very interested to read more of her poetry. I have wanted to read it since I read some of her work in my Victorian literature class. I got to read her poems Goblin Market and In an Artist's Studio, and I found those poems really interesting. Both of them have kind of different descriptions of womanhood and challenges that women face during this time, and so I think it'll be interesting to read some of her other work and see the other themes that she explores as well in the rest of her poems. And then the other one that I picked up is one that I'm really excited about because I love anything that has to do with England, and I also really love Jane Austen. I have not read all of her books yet, but I have read I think 4 out of the 6 of them, and so I'm really excited to read the other 2, but I also just love anything kind of about her because I think she's a really interesting author. And this is The History of England by a Partial, Prejudiced, and Ignorant Historian. So I think this will be a very entertaining read for sure. I was flipping through it a few weeks ago when I first got it, and I saw that she had done these different portraits of the kings of England, which I thought was very touching. So I'm very excited to go through this and see Jane Austen's take on the history of England. I think it'll be very entertaining, and I'm very excited to read this one. And then the last book that I have is a book that is definitely getting a lot of attention right now, and that is Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. It is already a Good Morning America book club pick, and it is very popular because it's discussing a lot of issues that have been very prevalent on the internet in the past few years. This book follows Natalie Heller Mills, who is a tradwife social media influencer that is thrown back into the 1800s and forced to live a true pioneer lifestyle. This book alternates between scenes of Natalie as she is captured in the 1800s living this pioneer woman lifestyle and trying to figure out what has happened to her. She is surrounded by people that she says look like her family but are not her family. They are children that aren't actually her children, and it is a much older looking version of her husband. And then it also flashes back to document kind of her rise of social media fame, the way that she got there, how she obtained all of her followers, as well as all of the different drama that ensued because of it. I've actually already read this book because, as I've said already, I am very much a mood reader and I was very in the mood for this book. I was seeing a lot about it online, and so I wanted to go ahead and pick it up, and I read it in like a few days. But if you want to hear what I think about it, then you'll have to stick around and subscribe so that you hear about it in my April reading wrap up at the end of the month. Those are all of the books that I have gotten in the past couple of weeks to share with you guys. I'm very excited about all of them, and they are definitely books that I could see myself reading in the very near future. They are things that I feel like are good spring and summer reads, or they're highly anticipated reads for me, and so I'm very excited to get to them. I'm not necessarily going to add them to my physical TBR for before I move overseas. They're just options for me to have in case I'm not feeling any of the ones that are on my physical TBR that I have already established, but I definitely want to prioritize reading those physical books that I've already talked about and kind of committed to reading as well. So these are just some additional options for me to have, and ones that I definitely wanted to have in my collection, especially the Penguin Archive classics. I definitely want to go back and get more of those in the future. I hope that you have found on some books that you are potentially interested in through this video. If you have gotten any new books recently, or maybe you have a new library book that you're excited about reading, please comment down below and let me know what new books you have, what library books you have, or just a book that you're excited about reading this season. I would love to know what books are on your TBR and how you're doing, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!